Hello everyone, I hope you had a nice break. So we have one more session for the day. This is lecture number 11 altogether and on Avatamsaka Sūtra. Now I'm just going to immediately pick up where we left off. I was in the middle of something, explaining something, and the time was up. So I'm sorry I left you being very confused. What we are doing now is chapter 4, the formation of the vowels. And then if you do have this book, I have this book on my right side, and I'm taking a look at this. Page 160 to 161. Samantabhadra is starting to explain the formation of these vowels. In another word, how this vowel is made. And then there's a curious listing about Samantabhadra is saying this world is made of this and this and this and this and that. It's 10 almost like a bullet points. I think I should start read this to start with so that it's clear what we are talking about. Before lunch break, I was showing you the list, but then it wasn't also translated into English properly, so probably some of you got very confused. And I do know some of you were confused because I got quite a few questions about that. So now let me clearly explain. I find this portion is very interesting, and also this was one of the focal point when I was taking the lecture series in Todaichi about Kengon-kyo, Avatamsaka Sūtra. So I'm going to share what I learned there. But anyway, to start with, this portion is a little difficult to understand in the English translation as well. But to start with, I'm going to read out. So we are going to read towards the end of page 160. He's pointing out then what are those 10, and they are as follows. Number 1, the causes and conditions necessary for the arising and completion of the world, of the oceans of the world. Number 2, that upon which the oceans of the world depends for their abiding. Number 3, the forms of the oceans of the worlds. Number 4, the essential nature of the oceans of the worlds. Number 5, the adornments of the oceans of the worlds. And then next 6, this goes into next page 161. The purity of the oceans of the worlds. Number 7, the arising of the Buddhas in the ocean of the worlds. Number 6, 7, 8, the kalpas during which the oceans of the world abide. And then 9, the differences in transformations of the oceans of the worlds and kalpas. And then number 10, and the gateway of the absence of differentiating aspects in the oceans of the worlds. I actually honestly didn't understand what they're talking about in this English. So what I did was I went back to the original Japanese explanation of this portion, and I made a list, and I'm going to show you in comparison to that. But then I also thought this may be a little different from the original 60 Kengon version. And what we are reading is an 80 Kengon version. So I went back to 60 Kengon version, and I did find a little bit of a difference of this 10 listing. And then in comparison, it really does start to make sense what the Avatamsaka Sūtra is trying to say, what this world is made of. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up the shared screen and then show you how this compares, right? So share the screen. Okay. Sorry. So this is what you are actually seeing in your English translation of 80 Kengon. And then next one, I made it into purple It's slightly a little small, so it may be a little difficult for you to read if you are following this online. But to start with, I'm going to start from the 80 version. So what the translators are translating as a causes of and condition is, shall I put the alphabet maybe in case you don't really read Japanese? So this is in nen. So in nen is causes and condition, as probably you already know. So the next one, in causes and condition, you already know what this is. So it's basically they are talking about this interdependency, interdependent origination, shall we say. So in another word, just like a cloud starts to appear because of these interdependent relations of, let's say, temperature, moisture, etc., etc., including the temperature of the ocean, etc., etc. So there's always interdependent relations that creates cause and condition, and then something in this world, some elements of this world actually starts to happen. And the next one, this translators translating as abiding, is originally it's Ju. Ju in this case is talking about, this actually comes from Abhidharma. It's the type of expression we say form is emptiness and the emptiness is form, right? That you already know very well. And then particularly in the analysis with spring and flower. And then in that case, for instance, spring is not tangible, but out of this causes and condition, which we call spring, there's something tangible really starts to happen, like a little bud of the plants or flower starting to open up. And all of those things, in another word, this is rupa, isn't it? In another word, this is shiki vis-a-vis ku. Shiki sokuze ku, ku sokuze shiki. Form is emptiness and emptiness is form. In this case, we are talking about the form portion. All this form, which in another word, something out of this emptiness, something tangible starts to appear. When it appears, in another word, when it starts to exist, there's always a space. And also when you actually see it, there's a direction. So in another word, I'm actually looking at my window now, and I often utilize this as analysis of a form is emptiness, emptiness is form. And then when the spring comes, outside of the window, for some reason or another, out of nothingness, I start to see some green starting to arise. So in that case, it's there, yes? So that there's a place and a direction when that happens. So in another word, in Indra's net, if you actually have a visualized illustration of a net, and then when the net, all of those arrows of the net are so-called relations, causes and conditions, those relations. And when it really starts to create something tangible, there's a place in this net. In another word, let me use the analysis of the sky and the cloud. When the cloud starts to happen, and now it's visible, and in that case, it's there. It may be constantly moving, but there's a space and direction. It's actually needed to create that. So therefore, that's called Ju here. So therefore, that's translated as abiding. And then next one is really easy. It's forms. And then when that happens, there's always some kind of characteristic of the forms. There's a form of violet, there's a form of rose, there's a form of a cloud, Each one of them constantly moves, but at the same time there's a form. And then number 4, this is essential nature. It's translated as essential nature is hontai or tai. So in another word, form, this number 3 and number 4, basically like emptiness and form and formless, form and emptiness. It's the type of a trajectory or relation, so to speak. And the next one, adornment, is a translation of shogun. Shogun is decoration, adornment. But in this case, we are also talking about these forms, those existences, those things that's tangible. But at the same time, these tangible things, or could be a person, can function as an adornment or can function not adornment of this entirety. Yes? But number 6, purity, is a translation of shoujo. Shoujo is related with the faith in Buddhist terminology. Faith is not a shin, is really not about believing something, but you have heard about this so many times, but just to remind you, in case you have never heard about this, what we usually translate as faith in Buddhism is not, it's the type of the word that comes from Judeo-Christian tradition, so you immediately have this idea about faith is something you must believe in. But in Buddhist case, it's shin, shraddha, originally, is you trust what Buddha's, shall I say, methodology, and then you utilize this methodology, and then you yourself clarify, oh, Buddha's teaching is actually correct, and then you really start to trust in that. And by trusting that, and you yourself really practicing that, what happens is your mind, your being becomes purer. So this is called shoujo. And in this case, this is the Buddhist purity. This is also related with all of that. You hear the Buddha Dharma, and then you feel like, well, let me try this. And you actually do a practice, and you yourself prove, and you yourself really start to have a trusting in the teaching. And then by doing the practice, you become purity. And once you become a purity, your mind is, your being become a pure, your being becomes adornment. In another word, all these 1 to 10 is somehow interrelated. So you are a form in this causes and condition or interdependent origination, in that you have a place and direction to be seen from the other people. As a matter of fact, all of us has this space we are actually standing upon. And then for some reason or another, we are so blessed, and we really start to hear Buddha's teaching, and then we practice, and for some reason or another, our being contributes as a purity or as an adornment into this world. And then next one, it's also related with that sometimes there's someone who's like a leader of the practice appears in this. Arising of the Buddha is the translation of Nyorai Shussei. Nyorai is Tathagata. Shussei, in this case, talking about the appearance in this world. And the next portion is, I think, first 7 often relates with the sense of space, obviously, like number 2. So therefore, sense of space is always hands in hand with the sense of time. This kalpas is a Buddhist way of talking about the time. And obviously, this is a translation from Go, which is a Sino-Japanese translation of kalpas. So therefore, now we are really starting to form this world together with a sense of form and time. Now, number 9 and number 10 are kind of strange. First of all, I really didn't understand what these translators are trying to do. So therefore, originally in 80 Kegon, this number 9 is the translators translating as differences is henka. Henka is more like a change rather than differences. And then next one, this is also a very interesting word. This translator must have thought and probably had a little bit of struggle how to express this into English. And so therefore he's expressing using this translation as gateway of the absence of differentiating aspect. As the English itself, I don't think it makes much sense. So therefore, I'm going to explain from in comparison together with number 60. Now, number 60 is interesting. The first portion in 80 version is causes and condition, but the original number 60 actually places as a namarupa, so it's a word. And then it is a translation of kotoba or setsu. In another word, it is namarupa. In another word, it's a bit like Bible says, first there's the word. I don't know how people in Christian tradition are actually taking that expression, but it's very interesting if you place it into Buddhist context, because the world actually starts to appear, my world starts to appear once I give it a name. Isn't that really right? First of all, let's say if I was a baby and I really don't have that developed consciousness to differentiate me versus somebody else, but it's a bit like a developmental consciousness. But as I become a baby, and then I keep looking at this wonderful lady who keeps offering me something to eat or drink, milk. And this wonderful lady keeps telling me, I'm your mom, I'm your mother, you are my son. So therefore, eventually, as my brain starts to develop, I would start to say, oh, so that's somebody whose name is mother. I like her because she always approaches me and she gives me something to eat. And when I feel uncomfortable, that's the person who comes to me and gives me solace and changes my diaper and gives me comfort. So therefore, I start to give her a name. It may not be like mother, but for some reason or another, I differentiate between me versus somebody. That's the portion in Buddhist theology is called the first portion, and it's called Namarupa. Nama is, name, and rupa is thing. So in another word, you gave a name to a thing. By doing so, you actually divided between you versus things outside. But by this way, I create my world. So I think this is very interesting that the 60 version actually places Namarupa word to start with. Then afterward, it's the same explanation. Cause and conditions, innen, abiding, ju, form, keitai, katachi, essential nature, it's hontai or body, so it's kaya, sense of space, and then adornment, purity, same word, and then arising of Buddhas. Arising Buddhas also gives the opportunity for the beings to make a contact with the Buddha's teaching. Yes? And then there's a sense of time. Now, instead of having 9 and 10 in 80 version as differences and gateway of absence of differentiating aspect, The last one in original 60 version is same word. Now this word, hoben, you probably know what this is. It is a Sino-Japanese translation of upaya. So I believe in American Buddhist community, they prefer the translation skillful means or expedient means, skillful means, I think. So when you hear this word skillful means, particularly most of us enter into Buddhist teaching through Mahayana Buddhism. So we often think about this word skillful means as Mahayana Buddhist way. So in another word, we often say, to offer some sort of comfort to some people. We really, let's say, how about this? To offer somebody who is sick, offer somebody some comfort to who is sick. Probably easiest way is, giving some medicine or calling for the doctor. So in another word, that's a skillful means. And then eventually, you will find the core reason of the illness, and if it could be spiritual or psychological or just simply physical. But anyway, to start with, you need some sort of a tool to bring some sort of comfort or rescue to some people. And in that case, we often call that as a skillful means. This is just one of not very good, probably not very good example, but something I just came up with right now to my mind. But we just have to remember Avatamsaka Sūtra is at the was created around the time early Mahayana Buddhism was starting to arise, and one of the major issues or subject or theme of all of those early Mahayana Buddhist texts is counter statement to then it got very stagnated and was not very helpful form of Buddhism. Now we call them as basically Abhidharma Buddhism or Abhidharma Buddhism era. And then what happened in those days, things got so conceptually stagnated and they were having a hard time to step out of it. So for instance, in many of those early Mahayana Buddhist texts, there's a lot of conversation, such as, let's say, for instance, I'm sorry, I'm just going to temporarily take this screen off so that I can see you, so that I can tell who's scratching their head. But anyway, for instance, in ancient Buddhism, Buddha is talking about impermanence, right? And then when Gautama Buddha dies, Gautama Buddha would say everything is impermanent, and all of those things that's compounded is have to decay. So therefore, I am also going to decay and I'm going to die. So therefore, you are losing one of the three treasures, and most important treasure is Buddha. Buddha treasure is actually going to die. But he says, after I die, until now you probably came to me and you asked me what I say, and you asked me what you should be doing, etc., etc. But now I'm gone. But after I'm gone, you should follow the Dharma. In another word, in that case, they are talking about the teachings he left. So in ancient Buddhism, Buddha's dead. And then after that, Buddha's word is going to be, either orally or in written form is left. And then what's left there is impermanence. Now, as the Buddhism starts to develop, this word Dharma starts to develop and evolve. And by the time of Mahayana Buddhism, they use the word Dharma as what the Buddha was teaching. Not just the literal teaching, but also what the Buddha was teaching was formation of the world, interdependent origination. So by this time, the word Dharma not only utilizes written, you should do this and you should do that, number one, number two kind of thing, but also this. Now, from my point of view, as a human being point of view, if I see myself or if I see something outside, it is impermanent. But that's when I see something outside, right? But in this total function and this entirety, is it actually impermanent? To make it called as impermanent, you have to have some point of view or some stance to view this. But this stance to view this is not separated from Dharma, Dharmakaya, total function, entirety. You are actually a part of it. So therefore, by the time of Mahayana Buddhism comes, Mahayana Buddhism starts to say, from my point of view, this is impermanent. But from Dharma point of view, of course, we can't really see it from the Dharma point of view, but somehow we can understand this for some way. And then from Dharma point of view, actually there's nothing is happening. It's not moving. So therefore, you may use the word permanent, not as vis-a-vis impermanent, but something beyond the comparison between permanent or impermanent, because this is beyond my point of view, because it's entirety looking at this. What it is just a moment by moment by moment by moment by moment of recongregation of immense numbers of relations only. So therefore, there's actually nothing is happening. So therefore, it's not impermanent. So you may say permanent or impermanent, whichever is okay. Because there's no such a thing like a permanent, impermanent. So therefore, in Mahayana Buddhism, you start to say mujo and jo, impermanent and eternity. So when that type of conversation happens in the text, Mahayana Buddhist text, there's always some sort of interesting dialogue. I think the typical of them is Vimalakirti Sutra, but it happens in all of those, early Mahayana texts. Something like Abhidharma time, era of Abhidharma Buddhism, or shall we say, many Buddhist school Buddhism, is often symbolically talked about as a Shravaka. Shravaka is a voice hearer. In another word, these are the people who heard the Gautama Buddha's word, but not just historically depicting like people like Shariputra, etc., but it's a symbolic way of talking about the people who just take in the word only and doesn't really see the true meaning beyond the word. And then those people are symbolically depicted as the form of Shariputra, Makakashapa, etc., comes and talks with somebody who represents Mahayana Buddhism, saying, it's so strange that you say Dharma is permanent, eternity, because Gautama Buddha never said that, and I don't see any of those scriptures who said so. And then from Mahayana, someone who represents Mahayana Buddhism says, that is because Gautama Buddha used those words as a skillful means. Hoben. Because he saw your understanding is shallow and you wouldn't understand if it goes beyond that description. And then as an entry, you really need to see impermanence. So he used the word impermanence as Hoben. So in early Mahayana Buddhism, this word Hoben, upaya, skillful means, was a bit like, description of why Gautama Buddha spoke in such a limited way without really pointing out the true meaning of it. Now, let me go back to the shared screen. Okay? I hope as much to this portion you understood this. So therefore, before Hoben, there's a word here. I'm going to illuminate this yellow. This word is breakthrough or breaking or going beyond, letting it going. They are talking about letting go or going beyond this expression Gautama Buddha used as a skillful means to make those people who has a lesser faculty to understand. But now we are going beyond this. So, in another word, if we translate this portion, instead of differences, this is changes. Let's say, let's do as a changes. And then talking about the changes, in another word, talking about impermanence was a skillful means by Gautama Buddha for the people who really need to understand the Dhamma from one on one, one by one, step by step, as how do you say, elementary level. And then now we are actually breaking this through. So this is basically non-change. So I don't know how to do these things. So in another word, again, how about we say impermanence and eternity? Because impermanence was Gautama Buddha's skillful means to bring the people to the first step. But if you go beyond that, it is actually nothing is happening, and this is eternity. This is exactly the same structure as Kannongyo's 12 challenges. I think all of you do know Kannongyo very well. It's chapter 25 Lotus Sutra. As a matter of fact, next season I'm going to revive the lecture series on Kannongyo. So if you are interested, please come to that class as well. And I have a plan to record all of that so you can follow the lecture series by recording too. But Kannongyo chapter 25 in Lotus Sutra is the one we recite every morning during the morning service in Soto school temples and monasteries. And then particularly interesting portion is in the verse, and in the verse there are 12 times repetition. There's some very problems going on, and then there's a word in between that says Nenpi Kannon Riki. Nenpi Kannon Riki is basically switching your point of view from a secular point of view to Dharma point of view. And then it connects with the Dharma world. In the Dharma world, there's nothing is going on. So there's some problem going on, and you say Nenpi Kannon Riki, or in another word, you go to Shikantaza, you let your heads go, ideas go. Then you really see the Dharma portion. It's actually, there's none of those problems are going on. It's just that. So for instance, one of the typical one would be you feel someone's jealous or someone's attacking you, and you feel you're on the top of the hill. In another word, you feel you achieved something. Let me just take this off, okay? You feel you achieved something and you are so good and you are on the top of the world. Then therefore, there's someone who's really jealous of you, is trying to push you from the cliff on the top of the hill, and then you are falling. But then you say, Nenpi Kannon Riki, in another word, well, let me just remember what the Buddhist teaching is about. And then you really start to develop this, how do you say, wisdom to see the situation from a Dharma point of view, and then the line changes. No, what's happening is you are just held in the empty sky. Isn't that interesting? Even if you are actually falling physically, what's happening right now, right here, is not about, oh, somebody pushed me, someone did, someone that. That's in your head. What's actually happening is you are in this moment in the sky. That's just what's happening, what it is. So, this last 9 and 10 in 80 version of this is a very interesting structure, repeated very often in Mahayana Buddhism text about you see the world this way from your secular point of view, or your mind point of view. But then what it is in the true reality is actually that nothing is going on. And what connects this is our practice. And of course, as a human being, we have to keep on living in this world. Everything is going on. But at the same time, as a skillful Buddhist practitioner, we do know, for some reason or another, bring our mind back into, shall we say, in front of the white wall. And then we have some little moment of sanity, so to speak. And we'll be able to see towards the direction of Buddha Dharma as well. And then we always have to kind of combine these two, secular sense and also Dharma wisdom into our living our life. So I think this listing is kind of interesting, though it's very difficult to translate into English. But anyway, let me just go back to the pointer. So in another word, what they are talking about is this world is not only, first of all, for this world to appear or to form, there are lots of causes and conditions. And in this Indra's net, or in this form world, there's incredible numbers of matters. But in these incredible things, matters also do include Buddhist teaching, and some of us follows the Buddha's teaching, and some of us tries to somehow utilize as a volition, not facing towards the secular value system, but also facing toward Buddha Dharma. And that volition itself is also a part of the function it creates, which also is an element to keep on creating this whole world. So I think this is very interesting. And also, out of the 10, there is this volition portion. In another word, arising Buddha and purity again is an English translation. So please don't take this as an English translation and concepts around. It is about you hear Buddha's teaching. For some reason or another, you are blessed to have a contact with the Buddha's teaching, and you decide to try it. And then by trying it, you build the trust, and then your mind becomes pure. Pure, in another word, meaning you're not completely sucked into what you think is happening in this world. But at the same time, you can also view this world stepping aside a little bit from Dharma point of view. And that's purity. And then by doing so, your being becomes also adornment of this Dharmakaya. So in another word, it's very interesting. Out of those 10, quite a lot percentage is in our practice, in our volition, in our action. So this is exactly related with, remember in introduction, I was also talking about, let's say, Prajnaparamita Sutra, Lotus Sutra, Avatamsaka Sutra, is going to start to be developed like side by side, but chronologically one by one, one after another, right? And then each one of them has a typical expression, typical way, characteristic way of describing this, Buddha Dharma. And then Prajnaparamita sutras often likes to use form is emptiness and emptiness is form. Now, by the time of Avatamsaka Sutra, it gets a little, how do you say, gives you an image of there's two things. And also, even if you start to clearly clarify this is not a two things, not form and emptiness. There's no such a thing. There's a form over there and there's an emptiness over there. Now you really understand this is kind of like a trajectory, two different sides of one thing and how things are, working. But at the same time, it's very conceptual. So therefore, we almost lose the sense that it's constantly moving and constantly acting, and in that we are also a part of it. So therefore, by Avatamsaka Sutra, they use different words. Different words they use is, as if you remember, Tai, So, You. Tai is body, so in another word, it's a space or emptiness, and So is a translation from a Lakshana. Lakshana means in characteristic, tendencies, inclination. In another word, unless there's something tangible, something visible happens, there's no characteristic. So therefore, we are talking about rupa, talking about form, shiki, in shikisokuzeku kusokude shiki. So in another word, tai so, up to that is shikisokuzeku kusokuze shiki. But Avatamsaka Sutra school intentionally adds one more element that is called you. You is function. So this world is shikisokuzeku kusokuze shiki, not only that, with function, with movement, with action. It doesn't only mean it's constantly moving, but also constantly including our action and our movement as a part of interdependent relation, as a part of cause and condition. That's the portion they're really emphasizing. So that's why Avatamsaka Sutra is really sutra of action, sutra of our practice. And that's why intentionally they choose Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, which is a symbolic way of talking about our action itself, symbolic way of, personification of our action portion is Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, right? Is the leader of the speaker, the leader of the expounding this Dhamma. So, yes, at the beginning, this is a little difficult to unwrap, but I think this is a very important portion, an interesting portion. Now, 161. One more important thing is in the middle of this page, there's a line that says, I'm going to read it out, so if you like to, please take a look at your own book, 161. In the middle of the page, it says, sons of the Buddha, generally speaking, there are 10 types of causes and conditions through which all oceans of worlds have become established. Oh, wait a minute, so that it's a little more clearer, because English translation is always like la 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 la, and it's kind of, how do you say, elusive with the important portion. What they are talking about is Samantabhadra Bodhisattva now expanded the Dhamma, and he said this formation of the world is made of this. There was a song like that. This world is made like this. The world is made of this and this and this and this and that. Yes? And then he says, it has, the world have become established this way, now is becoming established, and will become established in the future. So what he's talking about, this has been like this, And right this moment, as I talk, it is being established like this. I think it's a little, it says now become established, but it should be now being established, becoming. It is a present progressive. It is actually ongoing. And then will be like this. I think this is a very interesting statement. Have become established, now become established, and will become established in the future. And the most important portion in here is besides Tai and soul, you, function portion, is really important. And it is also, in another word, gives a very clear sense. If you hear form is emptiness, emptiness is form, it's almost like I am looking at the world. And it's like, I'm sorry, hold on one moment, please. Sorry, I was interrupted a little bit, so I'm going to pick up what I was talking about. So this is actually a very interesting portion of Avatamsaka Sūtra, because when you hear form is emptiness and emptiness is form, there's always a little sense of I'm looking at the world that is form is emptiness and emptiness form, and it tends to exclude this me. But when you say my action, my speech, next thought I have is also a part of this causes and condition that keeps on creating this world. And this world has been created that way with all these bodhisattvas action. And you really start to feel, whoa, I'm responsible. I'm responsible for creating my own world. And I'm also grateful to those ancestors of mine who really tried to do something good, and something even tried to do for some way or another, trying to hold this teaching all the way up to here. So there's a really clear sense of I'm a part of this, I'm in it. I'm on the top of a Buddha's hand, right here, right now. So this whole imagery kind of completely changes. From Shikisokuzeku Kusokuze Shiki to this Avatamsaka Sūtra. I'm now in the middle of the net. And what I do also affects the net, creation of the net. I'm sorry, I was interrupted again. So there's a little bit of break in this recording. The reason is, Paul also went beyond 65 years old. He's a little younger than me. So when I was going through 65 years old too, same thing has happened, but we constantly receive those scam calls, about Medicare and etc., etc. And then I was just thinking, wow, it's really interesting. We are talking about our action and speech and our livelihood, and whatever we do gives an influence to this formation of interest net. And there's a whole bunch of people who make a living out of bothering others. And then this whole world has been always established this way, and is being established this way, will be established this way. So in another word, for the people who became aware of what's going on and fortunately received Buddha's teaching, we try something a little more positive. We really don't know what's positive, what's negative in the long run. But at least at this right moment, we just try to face toward at least my understanding, our understanding of Buddha Dharma. And then it becomes something a little more positive over that time. But anyway, this way of talking about is very interesting. So, the formation of the world is just often explained, it is really like a principle of the nature, just like sun rises and then day comes and sun settles and the night comes. And usually human eyes are placed on the horizontally, noses are vertical. And then as long as you are living on this planet, water runs from high place to low place. And that's the type of thing Buddhism is talking about. But it is really true. And at the same time, it is also, this trajectory includes things, people, matters, rupas within this network. And some of those beings have volitions and actions. And then that also becomes a part of this causes and condition of this whole world is creating. It is really important for us as a being to really recognize how this is really made. Uchiha Roshi sometimes talks about this in this way. You know, most of us think there's something called the world, and then we are born into this. And then we are in this world while we are alive, and then we die, and after we die, this world continues. But Uchiha Roshi says, but that's absolutely wrong, because this whole world is constantly being created together with me. You know, I am a part of this whole world. And then in Buddhist sense, we were never really born or never really dead, because there's not one single point. The elements that creates some visible matter, this visible matter is called Issan, is not changing, right? Every moment this is changing, and every moment it was changing, and to the point it wasn't a congregation of this shape, but it was a congregation of two different matters, my mother and father. And then before that, there was something else. And so after I die, yes, this congregation goes away, but at the same time, element stays in whatever the way. For instance, I have this will, I'm going to be cremated, and a portion of my ashes will be tossed into offshore of Oahu Island of Hawaiian Islands. And that's the area where those Pacific current really merges and goes circle around. So my portion of the elements may be eaten by a fish, or may continue to go into all the way to flow all the way around to the north and back into North America to South America, etc., etc. And some of them may become a portion of the land, which eventually becomes a portion of the rock, and etc., etc. You know, it's always here. So, you know, from a physics point of view, nothing misses and nothing adds in this world. So, yes, it is really untrue that we think, most of us think there's a pre-existing world, and into that we are born, and after we are dead, pre-existing world continues. No, that's really not the way we see or Buddhism sees. And at the same time, I just like to say, by the time this Avatamsaka Sūtra was composed, there was no support from, let's say, physics. There's no such a thing. And there was no science that supports this way of, looking at the world. So they probably felt, many of those people felt what's written in the Avatamsaka Sūtra, or what's expounded by, Mahayana Buddhism teaching, must have been feeling like some kind of mystical, way of looking at the things, or some kind of fantastic kind of looking at the things. But now we really start to see, wow, this is really true. And it's quite amazing how people really see it. One out of all me. In another word, when I start to feel I am just one outside of this, if I keep looking at myself as a separate entity, yes, I am born out of interestness, and then I just extinguish into the interestness net. But if I really start to recognize I am constantly made visible, tangible, feelable by all of this. So in another word, if this shape starts to disentangle and dissipate, I am still in this incredible interest net. So therefore, this is the reason why we always said there's no death, no extinguishing. And at the same time, from my point of view, I always see this, there's a birth and there's a death. So from this point of view, there's a death and there's birth and there's death. But in a Dharma point of view, actually, none of that happened. So that's 12 challenges in, Kannon-gyo. So our practice is really about, let's say, most of us think the worst thing is to die. Worst thing is to get sick and die. Worst thing is getting old and getting sick and die. But it's just things that happens. It is really that, scene cut out of this constantly moving things that's called life. And then, so therefore, whatever happens is just a manifestation of this interdependent origination. So from one out of all me type of way of idea, from my egocentric way of looking at it, my practice would be, can I actually appreciate without actually calling that as good or bad? And then, that's really an interesting point, I think. Okay, page 162. I have a little more to go. And then in this segment, starting from page 162, it goes on and on and on and on about how this world is made. And then there's lots of different way of expressing, but it's really like a principle is this Tai, So, You. Yes. I'm going to pick some portions of it because it's a really long chapter, but there's lots of interesting expression going on. Please take a look at page 165. In introduction, I spoke about one of the major characteristics of how Avatamsaka Sūtra talks about Dharma is micro is macro, macro is micro. One is all is one portion. This is like a typical portion. This expression, this type of characteristic types of expression appears all over in Avatamsaka Sūtra. But I just want to point out as you keep on reading. So 165, say, 1 to 3rd stanza of this poem. In each and every atom of the lands of Dharma realm, all the great oceans of lands reside there within them. Clouds of Buddhas equally cover them all, and in every place completely fill them. Just as they freely function even within a single atom, so too within every atom, this is also just so. All Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, great spiritual super knowledges, great spiritual super knowledges. Vairochana Buddha is able to show them all. By now, I don't think you need any more explanation, but all of these are very symbolic way of talking about But for instance, this great spiritual super knowledge is, I think, is a translation of Jinzuriki. So therefore, I think it's clearer if you use the word supernatural power. And then, what is the supernatural knowledge and supernatural power? This function itself is a supernatural power, don't you think? You know, it is such a supernatural power. My heart keeps beating when I'm not even aware at all. As a matter of fact, most of the time when I'm living, when I'm aware, awake, I'm not paying any attention to the heart. But without me telling my own heart, please keep on beating, it keeps on beating. It is a supernatural knowledge and supernatural power. And it's all over the places. And the Vairochana Buddha is, I may be saying too many times, but it is a really symbolic way of talking about this universe. Yes? And then, let's see. Oh, by the way, I believe I mentioned this, but just in case, this English word atom is a translation of jin in Sino-Japanese. But this jin is actually Sino-Japanese translation of the Sanskrit word called anu or paramanu. And anu paramanu is supposed to be the smallest matter people can imagine at that time. And we are talking about 3rd, 4th century. So in English translation, it is atom because anu is the origin of the word atom as well in English. But currently, in the most modern science, atom is not the smallest thing we can actually imagine. So therefore, there's a little bit of an imagery trick, but when we are talking about the smallest thing you can even imagine. So please don't get again wrapped up with this English word. Macro is micro, micro is macro. Just like we just did, often when we hear this now, we tend to tackle on this from scientific knowledge, but it is really much more closer to our daily life, I think. We are basically talking about, this sutra is talking about, all the sutra is actually talking about our own life. So if you really bring it into much more closer to your heart level, all of us are such a small being, don't you think? The largest person I ever met is, tallest person I've ever met was 6 feet 6 inches. And I'm sure there are people like 7 feet, but still, in comparison to, let's say, trees or mountains, and never mind if you take a look at the earth from high above, each one of us are still such a small being. And then at the same time, it is quite amazing. Each one of those small beings is really living this life, including all of this, including, influence from the sun and the moon, and the distance between sun to the earth, and etc., etc. All of us are actually having this life because of this entire support. So yes, each one of us, small ones, large, tall one, shorter one, whatever it is, even though it's actually from a universal level, we are very small, but we are actually connected with the entire universe. I have this poem. You probably know this poem very well because this is a poem by Thich Nhat Hanh. And I think Americans, among the American Buddhist practitioners, Thich Nhat Hanh is very popular. I don't know much about the European nations, but I think it has something to do with the American sense of what happened in Vietnam. So therefore, there's a generation of the people who have discovered Buddhism is also somehow in sync with the generation of the people in Vietnam when Thich Nhat Hanh was really struggling there, but eventually he flee from Vietnam and go to France. So partially maybe a generation things, but he's very popular. So you probably know this poem very well. If you are a poet, you will see clearly that there is a cloud floating in this sheet of paper. Without a cloud, there will be no rain. Without rain, the trees cannot grow. And without the trees, we cannot make paper. The cloud is essential for the paper to exist. If the cloud is not here, the sheet of paper cannot be here either. So we can say that the cloud and the paper interbeing. Interbeing is a quotation. Interbeing is a word that is not in dictionary yet, but if we combine the prefix inter with the verb to be, we have a new verb, interbe, inter hyphen be. Without a cloud, we cannot have paper, so we can say that the cloud and the sheet of paper are interbe, or inter-are. If we look into this sheet of paper even more deeply, we can see the sunshine in it. If the sunshine is not there, the forest cannot grow. In fact, nothing can grow. Even we cannot grow without sunshine. Even we cannot grow without sunshine. And so we know that sunshine is also in this sheet of paper. The paper and the sunshine inter-are. And if we continue to look, we can see the logger who cut the tree and brought it to the mill to be transformed into paper. And we see the wheat. We know that the logger cannot exist without his daily bread. And therefore, the wheat that became his bread is also in the sheet of paper. And the logger's father and mother are in it too. When we look into the way, we see that without all of these things, this sheet of paper cannot exist. This is Thich Nhat Hanh's very characteristically such gentle, sweet, kind way of explaining one is all is one. Yes? Let's continue to read as much as we can. Page 165. Towards the end of the same page, sons of the Buddha, the oceans of the world exist in many different sorts of shapes and appearances. For example, some are spherical, and some are rectangular, and some are neither spherical nor rectangular. There are countless differences. Some resemble the shape of the whirlpool, some resemble the shape of a flaming mountain, some are shaped like a tree, some are shaped like a flower, some are shaped like a palace, some are shaped like living beings, and some are shaped like Buddha. There are different forms such as these as numerous as atoms in an ocean of the worlds. This numerality also talks about diversity, yes? And going into the next page, page 166, it goes on to the oceans of the lands have all kinds of differences, including all types of adornments, all kinds of ways in which they abide, the extraordinary shapes, all beautiful, pervade the 10 directions. You should all join in contemplating them. So there are so many different shapes, there are so many different, beings, and all of that is really caused by causes and conditions of this universe. So in another word, all of those things, small, large, rectangular, round, etc., are all created by Buddha's power. in another word. Yes. Among them, there are pure ones, there are dirty ones, etc., etc. Let's continue to read this. This is very interesting. There are 6 different stanzas underneath. In appearance, some are spherical. This is page 166. I continue to read. In appearance, some are spherical, some are rectangular, yet others are rectangular, triangular, and so on, or even octagonal. Some are shaped like many jewel spheres or like lotus, and so forth. All of them are caused to be different because of karma. This karma is action, in another word, causes and condition. In some cases, they are adorned with pure flaming radiance, real gold inlay, and many other such extraordinarily fine aspects, where the gates and doors readily open without being blocked. This is due to broadly beneficial karma and pure intentions. Oceans of lands contain boundless treasury of differences like those in the clouds spreads out across the sky. Jewel wheels are spread across the ground as marvelous adornments in which the in which the Buddha's light shines forth with dazzling illumination. The discriminations made by the mind in all the lands are all illuminated and revealed by many different kinds of light. Throughout such oceans of lands as these, the Buddha displays the power of his spiritual super knowledges in each of them. Some of these are defiled, whereas others are pure. So it includes something we say dirty, includes something we say sacred and pure. The experience of sufferings and the enjoyment of pleasures differ in each. This is due to an inconceivable ocean of karma. All dharmas of cycle existence are always this way. There are an inconceivable number of lands, even in a single pore. Here we go again. The different bases for their abiding are as numerous as atoms. In each of them, there dwells universally illuminating Bhagavan, Buddha, abiding amidst a congregation proclaiming the wondrous Dharma. So, including something we feel dirty and something we feel beautiful, including something we say, oh, it's painful, something we say, oh, it's pleasurable. Everything is created Buddha's power, Buddha's super knowledge, Buddha's super power. By this causes and condition. It's just inconceivable. And then that is also happening in just one single pore of our hair. This is really like expanded really beautifully. So this one single pore, you can actually read this as one human being in this world. Yes, and in this world, there are so many different group of people, different. As a matter of fact, there are billions of us, but each one of us are different. There's not even one single person among billions of people who are completely same, because of this interdependent origination, causes and condition, and karmas, and etc., etc. It is quite amazing. It is inconceivable. And then, with that, including this dirty, beautiful, ugly, beautiful, pleasurable, painful, etc., including all of that, this Buddha land creates the harmony. It's just unbreakable harmony. It is created and keeps on moving. This is really interesting. There are lots of thoughts coming to me when I read this portion. So I'm going to share a little bit as much as we have time. We have about 10 more minutes. Quite many years ago, we had this little group of the licensed clinicians who all of us worked for hospice organizations, and we decided to form a little bit of a support group. In another word, we gather in, we rotated the places to gather, but we often go to somebody's living room and somebody's apartment or home. And then we just have this, kind of like a talk session. And then we often have some sort of a theme casted out. And then whoever think about some sort of stories of their life based on that theme, we talk. And one day we were talking about this, one is all is one. And then, this inevitably brings about this amazing, like awesome sense of what an incredible diversity this whole world is created. And then one of my colleagues actually told, she was such a sweet person, and she told me this story about when she was growing up. I think she was like 5 or 6 years old. And one day she was having a little snack in the kitchen table. Then she looked at the floor in the kitchen and she saw a little bit of a small, like a group of roaches. And then she recognizes this roach was a larger one and then very small one. And then small one was following this larger one, and they were going back into this little crack on the wall. And she said that was the first time she ever really recognized that, wow, even those so-called small, useless, or somewhat people hate those beings, those small little beings do have sense of home, sense of family. And that really became a bit like an opening experience she had. And it is really true, don't you think? All of us, when we were in a child, there's a little bit of moment like recognizing, wow, it's not just human being, but also cats and dogs and all of those kettles, and including the flowers and etc. has this little sense of this community, and then there's a little sense of feeling. Even the flowers, I don't know what is the definition of the feelings in Judeo-Christian world, but as long as you go toward what you like and you try to stay away from what you don't like from Buddhist theological sense, it's actually living being. And you do know plants do that, For instance, there's 3 potato flowers, and if one of the potato flowers are infected by some kind of parasites, those 2 nearby tries to go this way. It's quite incredible. I have lots of potato flowers, so I have some experiences like potato flowers are speaking to me or speaking to each other. It's quite amazing. Speaking about my colleague's experience, some time ago, I really needed to buy sets of pillows, and this is about 20 some years ago. I was moving from one apartment to another apartment, and I wanted to buy new pillows because when I was doing some sort of research for where to go buy pillows, and on the process of that, on the website, there was a showing of a picture of a microcosm of inside of the down pillow. And it really freaked me out because when pillow becomes old and if you don't really wash the pillow, and there's lots of things happening inside of the pillow, it's like a whole universe. There's some beings creating their community inside, It's a microcosmic world, but it is really, surprising. Like even inside of that, there is a really whole world going there. So that also made me remember these expressions in one is all is one. Even inside of this tiny little pore, there's a whole bunch of huge world is going on. Literally, it's very interesting. But anyway, and all this world is interrelated, and the entire world is interrelated. So this is where we really feel when we take a look at those, polar bears losing their ice and losing their place to live, you really start to feel, we're not really looking at the polar bear, we're actually looking at the human being. What's happening over there eventually going to affect all of us. It is already affecting those, island nations in the Pacific. There's always a boomerang effect, and that is the principle of the nature. That is the principle of the Buddha Dharma. I have a little more time left, so let me go on. Let's see. Page 167. I think this is also yet another beautiful depiction of the world. I keep mentioning this, but Avatamsaka Sūtra particularly, again, is almost like a counter statement to then it was really stagnated Buddhism. Now we call them as Abhidharma Buddhism. Talking about the world being filled with the pains and sufferings, etc., etc. From one out of all me, my small little me point of view, yes, it does look like that from time to time. But we really have to have this balanced view, meeting Dharma. We do have to develop the view from the Dharma as well. And then from the Dharma point of view, this is a beautiful world. The formation of the world included all of those, people in our past made effort to keep on creating this world. At least we still have this living condition, don't we? Yes, we complain a lot, and we also foresee this condition may not last too long because of this human-made disaster, etc., etc. But at least we have this living condition because of including all these people's effort has been created so far. And then this is the type of this beautiful world Avatamsaka Sūtra depicts, starting from the top of the verse, page 167. Some are composed adornment made of all kinds of jewels. Some are composed of all kinds of adornments made from one type of jewel. Some are composed entirely from the radiance emanated by all kinds of jewels. Some are composed of all kinds of different colored lights. Some are composed of light emanated from all kinds of adornments. Some are composed of indestructible vajra. Some are composed of sustenance from the Buddha's powers. Some are composed of aspects of marvelous jewels. Some are composed of Buddha's spiritual transformations. Some are composed of spheres made of solar mani jewels. Some are composed of most minuet jewels. Some are composed of flaming radiance emanated by all kinds of jewels. Some are composed of many different types of incense. Some are composed of floral crowns made of all kinds of jewels. Some are composed of reflected images emanated by all kinds of jewels. Some are composed of manifestation produced by all kinds of adornments. Some are composed of spheres of objective experience manifested everywhere by a single thought of the mind. Some are composed of jewel made into the shape of Bodhisattva. Some are composed of stamens of flowers made of jewels. And some are composed of voice of the Buddha. All five sensory systems, this expression really hits and kind of resonates from your deep ocean of memories. There are moments and there are places. There's a time and a place where you really felt, wow, this life, this world is actually beautiful. And then it's almost like a collection of those memories. You can just totally relate and resonate in each words. so symbolically. This is really beautiful. I do have a little more thing I like to read and talk about in this chapter, but now time is up for this month. So I'm going to conclude here, and I will pick up the rest of this chapter 4 when we meet next time. By the way, next month, February, is our traditionally reduced scheduled month. So therefore, we are basically having a wholesome month. We do sit in the morning zazen, but we don't have any study programs going on. And in March, I spent, from February to March, I spent some time in Europe. So therefore, I don't think we plan March intensive either. So the next time we meet will be April. So in another word, next time we meet, season changes. And that's the beginning of our summer ango already, year 2025. So I make a clear mark where I am now. And then in April, I'm going to pick up the rest of chapter 4. I hope you continue to read Avatamsaka Sūtra and continue to enjoy the Dharma as much as I do. It's really wonderful and fun to keep reading and studying and learning so much from Avatamsaka Sūtra. Okay, thank you very much. I see you in April.